know, being a dad, my kids are always on my case about making sure we're recycling and doing the right thing also. Whether it was wind energy or geothermal or solar panels, it's all got to get hauled. It's got to get from point A to point B, and Anderson Trucking can do that. We've done it for several years, and we've really invested deeply into that segment itself. We have to deliver the products. We've successfully delivered thousands of complete windmill turbines throughout the nation, and in fact internationally at this point now too. The business has grown quite a bit for us. Well, there's a lot of integrity behind the wind components because it's such high exposure commodity. Oftentimes they're well over 100 feet and over width as well. So there's a lot of exposure. We want to make sure that the safety to the public is there and the integrity behind our company as well. Feel pretty confident that's going to grow for us. According to a poll conducted on behalf of MEP in February 2010, 73% of Minnesota voters support increasing state government investment in the development of clean, renewable energy sources. In addition to what Minnesota has already done, what more can we do, and what would you do as governor to build Minnesota's clean energy economy through attracting and growing businesses that manufacture wind, solar, and geothermal?
And Mr. Hahn, this time we'll start with you.
I think we're off to a good start with these wind farms that are propping up around the state. I have my reservations, serious reservations in fact. I think it's an easy way to get to the goals or the mandates that the state has set forth. And I question whether the wind farms are really the route to go because we still have to worry about a grid. Frankly, one of the areas that I would look seriously at in terms of expanding at least our clean energy or cleaner energy is number one, to lift the moratorium on nuclear power here in the state. I think as it stands now, we get approximately 25% of our energy from the 2 nuclear power plants, Red Wing, Monticello. They're second generation plants. We haven't had any major problems, really no problems at all. There's some storage issues, yes, to be fair, but we're behind, not here in Minnesota alone, but across the country when it comes to nuclear power. And I think we need, number one, to lift that moratorium and then give serious consideration and exploration to building a new plant or two. I think that becomes most cost effective, not only in the jobs it creates, but the return on investment in the amount of energy it can produce. And when it comes to safety, I think too many people have been scared into thinking that these nuclear power plants are all going to explode and turn three-headed monsters upon us in a nanosecond. It's just not like that. The 3rd and 4th generation plants that are going up around the world are much safer than ever. And like I said, we haven't had many problems, if any problems, with our 2nd generation. That's what I would want to do, lift that moratorium.
I need to break in here for just one moment. I didn't say no hissing, but please no hissing. Mr. Intenza.
Well, thank you. The core of my campaign is that Minnesota's economic future depends upon us moving into the new clean energy economy. It's not only something that we need to do, it's imperative that we do it. I want you to think about 2 years ago last summer when Sarah Palin and Tim Pawlenty stood at the Excel Center during the RNC and said, "Drill, baby, drill." And look what's happening now in the Gulf of Mexico. Look how we're spending money on dictators in the Middle East that are messing up our foreign policy, and our young soldiers are dying. We need to be drilling, but we need to be drilling up in the air. We need to be harvesting the wind. And while we have a renewable energy standard, and I'm proud to be one of the people who helped to usher that along its way, that standard isn't doing the job because our utility companies are not helping to create the incentives for locally owned energy production. And as a result, we have no manufacturing here. So the little bit of renewables that we're getting aren't creating jobs here. They're not creating manufacturing here. And we need a governor who's not going to talk about it, but who's going to lead. I believe we can create new multi-billion-dollar industries in solar, in the next generations of liquid-based biomass fuels, in geothermal, and of course in wind technology. The $10 billion we spend on energy needs to be shifted, and that means you need a governor through the Public Utilities Commission, the Department of Commerce, that's going to move us aggressively there, build up that manufacturing, build up those jobs, and change the way we produce our energy.
Mr. Dayton.
Mr. Hahn, you say we have a nuclear waste storage issue. We have a crisis in this country with nuclear waste storage because nobody wants it. Nevada doesn't want it. They don't want to be a national sacrifice area. I faced up to that for 6 years in the U.S. Senate. Minnesota doesn't want it. And no one should have to take that kind of risk and expose their citizens to that kind of serious danger. So to talk about expanding nuclear power in this state or nation and adding more nuclear waste when we don't have any resolution for what we already have that's leaking dangerously in places around this country, I think is extremely irresponsible. Shifting to what the government can do, I believe that we should lead by example. And I proposed an energy saving fund where we would issue state bonds that would initially go to help our colleges and universities re-insulate their buildings to use less energy, convert their boilers, heating and cooling systems to using alternative energy, use then fewer dollars for energy costs, use that money as a return to that fund to fund our state and local government buildings, our schools around the state. We should, in 10 years, we could transform the public sector's use of energy in this state to using alternative energy, using less energy, saving tax dollars, providing jobs for the building trades, to construct and reconstruct and redesign all of these facilities. And we could reduce dramatically Minnesota's energy consumption and set ourselves once again as the leader for the country in alternative energy use and conservation.
Mr. Horner.
You know, the challenge isn't in finding politicians to stand up in defense of green energy. I think that's pretty easy. The challenge is in finding leadership that is going to make green energy smart and responsible for Minnesota. So yes, absolutely. Should we be investing in wind energy? Of course. But the fact of the matter is, the wind doesn't blow that hard in War Road, Minnesota. And when we set a statewide standard that says we're going to incent wind energy across the state at the same level, we start to distort the equity that you, the consumers, expect from your utilities. Some utilities get a break because they're living in areas where they have wind. Other utilities and consumers pay that bill. So we need government that comes in with some smart principles, smart policies. One is that we need reliable, safe, affordable energy. We need energy policies that are fair to everyone. Minnesota has a huge cost advantage in much of our energy. We need to protect that advantage, otherwise we start to sink farther down in our economic challenges that we face. And we also need to make sure that when we invest in energy sources, that those investments aren't open-ended, that we're holding the energy sources, the new technologies accountable, and that we're getting a return on our dollars, and that return is measured and made transparent to you who are paying for all of this. So green energy, of course, but smart green energy and smart government leadership.
And Speaker Kelleher.
Well, I'm proud of the work that we've done to this point, and when Jack asked that question about what more can we do need to do more in the state. The renewable energy standard is a great place to start, but we also have to actively be working on the conservation issues in the state. It's why we passed a bill that is going to make our state government buildings carbon neutral by 2030. It's the sort of work that has to happen to make sure that we're reducing the amount of energy we're using. And you know, the renewable energy standard, and I know you know this, is more than just wind. It's geothermal, it's solar. We know that solar is a place that we have to increase. I was just out at 10K Solar this week, and they have a new design and a new product that is going to be it's going to be certified for export to Europe this summer. It's an exciting product. It makes it more efficient. Because here's the thing, the places where, and I'm the only person in this race to put out a full jobs plan for the entire state, a jobs roadmap, including clean energy and clean tech jobs. It's on our website, margaretforgovernor.com. I hope you will look at it and give me the feedback on the pieces that are related to renewable energy specifically. The state can go farther. The state can be a leader. These are our public dollars. We need to do the work together to make sure that we reach these goals. Another piece of that, again, is, measurement, accountability, and the reporting back to the public to make sure that we're hitting the goals. Investments in the University of Minnesota and higher education are important as well. I am going to need to leave, and I am sorry about that. I would like to invite all of you, any of you that would like to ask me a question, you can send me a question at margaretforgovernor.com. My table is in the back. And thanks so much for your involvement here today.